We covered the first session, we covered 1 to 7. So we're going to start from 9, where we talk about how can you become economically viable? In other words, your business. Okay, so just a quick overview, because for those who didn't attend, we covered quickly how can the African business participate. We did an overview of AFCFTA. So basically, in terms of economic viability of your business, because if you want to participate within the rubric of AFCFTA, or if you want to sort of be productive nationally, this presentation, part 2, is going to be beneficial. Even the AGOA presentation that my partner is going to be talking about, and we'll let you know how. So what are the various forms of becoming economically viable? It's not just looking at loans, because I know from practice that a lot of my clients are sort of swimming under debt. So loans are not basically the only way in which your business, be it national, if it's operating nationally or if it's cross-border, loans are not the only way that your business can progress and become really economically viable. What do we mean economically viable? That means your business is not just thinking short-term. You're making money, you have more money in your pocket in terms of profits, revenues, and the whole thing. So equity is another way. What is equity? Somebody can decide to own part of your business. For instance, they can buy shares. But first of all, what is the form of business you have? I think one of the things that struck me, I think from the first part that we had, some of you mentioned, and of course, from the wonderful job that Jose did with the questionnaire we sent out, we got some responses. Some of you are LLCs, some of you are sole proprietorships. So that too can feed into how your business becomes more productive or economically viable, both short-term and long-term. And we don't have, I think it's 12:32, but I think we can go on to 1:30 or something. So my partner can have time and we can have Q&A. So in terms of when we talk about grants, that's easy. That's where, a foundation or, you could get it locally from the government, or you could get it from United States, because we're also US citizens. I'm an African, but also a US citizens. They're different. We're going to be talking about that in the next slide, the places where you can go to get grants. Excuse me. However, there's also blended finance, which is loans, grants, equity, right? Somebody purchasing, saying, hey, geez, your business is doing well. Why don't I purchase, part of your business, right? But if you're registered, you want to also pay attention. Sole proprietorships are good. That's where you own your own business, you're alone, you're running it. But if you're an LLC, limited liability corporation, all of Africa has different forms of this LLC, meaning if you go bankrupt, if you don't have enough money, you're running your business, the advantage of having that limited liability is that your liability, meaning the banks or whoever you're owing, will be limited to what you put in, the money you put in. They're not going to come after if you have a house or a bicycle or whatever. It's limited to the investments that you put into the business, right? They're all types. There's a corporation. If you have a family, you could have a closed corp. There's the equivalent in Africa, because I'm also an African attorney, so I'm speaking with 2 hats now. So you could have a situation where you could set up a company and it's like, you're trying to avoid being taxed by the government, right? So you want to avoid double taxation. I don't want to go into so much technicalities. So basically, we're going to have next measures follow up to this. Okay, so where we will be, you could interact with us a little bit further, and we could connect you with local lawyers in different parts of Africa where you are, right? So I don't want to go into details, but that also can impact upon your business, right? The type of business you have. Now, there's franchise. And I know Some of you mentioned you run food business, right? You run, like in terms of IP, what type of intellectual, because it's IP means intellectual property. That's knowledge, intellectual meaning your knowledge, and you're sort of selling your knowledge, so to speak. You're increasing the value, be it whatever trade you're in. Some of you are in food, some of you are in, and I'm just looking, a lot of you in farming, different agribusiness, right? If it doesn't matter what you're in, but if you decide you want to increase the value of your product, right, it's good to register it. If it's in the food chain, food supply chain, be it from the being a farmer, what I call the cradle side of the food supply chain, you can still capitalize on the IP area, depending on what you're doing. If you want to turn it into agribusiness, say you're making strawberries, right? Now you want to now start canning, diversifying that industry, right? Some of you are making spices. You can sort of start bottling it, putting it in bottles to sell in the store, and then register it in your name or whatever name you want to give it. It increases the value because that's yours. You could mix things together, like for instance, what's her name? Teresa Hines, jollof rice, meaning African jollof rice. She now has a mixture, rice, and all the different spices she put in a package, and she calls it Heinz Jollof. She sells it at the stores. It's sold here. Nobody can go and claim that they have exactly the spices that she's mixed together. That's her knowledge or her company's knowledge. Does that make sense? If you have questions, let me know as I'm talking, right? And I'm looking at time because I want to stop at about in another 10 minutes. But so basically, that's the advantage of having IP is that, and if it's in the food supply chain, it's a trade secret, you call it. If it's, say, if you're writing a book or writing something, or you're like an actor or an actress, right? You're a producer of something or director. And I have some, clients in the creative industry. Then it has a different name. It's called copyright, right? You're protecting copyright. When you watch Nollywood movies or Gollywood or any of those movies, you see where they say that you can't infringe upon the rights of, there's the piracy laws, there's also copyright laws, there's food, in terms of trade secret, you're protecting in the food supply chain. If it's technology, some of you mentioned you were in the technology field, right? If it's some form of technology, especially somebody mentioned pharmaceutical, that's a patent. It's your knowledge, right? But they're basically the same. There's a transactional aspect of it. You register, you pay a little bit, but it elevates the value of what you're doing. And no, you can take somebody to court for saying, hey, that's my knowledge you stole. You do your own. It's like people buy different, even in luxury industry, Louis Vuitton, Gucci. You don't want any, body to steal your knowledge. So you do your own products. Of course, people do that. There's, in China, not just in Africa, there are people who do counterfeits. Even in pharmaceutical industry, it's not good to do that. People go, they fake things, or and it's very, very dangerous in the pharmaceutical industry, where people do counterfeits and they fake drugs. They say this is Tylenol or paracetamol, and it's a fake thing that they put in there. So that's in the realm of fraud. But what you're trying to do, and I think is very important for those of you who are in the food supply chain or whatever area you're in, if it's in pharmaceutical, it's good to make sure that you register your IP, you capitalize on that, because it gives you more money in your pocket. The value increases. Also, there is, if you're in trouble, if your business is in trouble and you've registered it, right? And you have say if it's a patent in the technology in terms of the food supply chain, you have trade secret, you're selling food and everybody loves your food, and you sort of register it as a trade secret, and everybody's like, oh my God, this is so great. Nobody can steal that soup because there's a taste that nobody can duplicate, right? If you then decide you're in trouble, the advantage of registering the IP is that somebody can say to you, geez, So many people are buying your product, it's doing very well, right? Why don't we buy your business? Somebody can decide they want to buy it. Or if you're not in trouble, in trouble and your business is doing very well and you've registered it, say it's called D&D food product or whatever it is, you could then have a franchise like McDonald's has a franchise, that's why McDonald's is all over the world. Or like a Kentucky Fried Chicken. He was a colonel many, many years ago in his 60s. That's when his chicken was so good and tasty. And he was first selling to neighbors. And then before you know it, he replicated it, right? It became very popular. That then what happens in that, you have the franchisor, meaning the person who claims that they are the original owners of that knowledge, and the franchisee. What they do is that they then say, hey, you can have the secret. I can allow you to have the secret to this food. All the ingredients, the tomato, what quantity of everything I put in. I'm giving an example now, just in the food industry. They have standards that you have to follow. All the franchises you see, be it Pizza Hut, now in Africa, they have McDonald's, they have, I think, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Even Africa now has Chicken Republic, I think originally from South Africa, it's now in Nigeria. I think it's also in Ghana. It's different parts of Africa, right? When you have that, in that situation, the person who's the franchisee, they then take that knowledge of what you have, but they pay for it. That's the advantage. If you become very popular and well-known, it can be replicated where your name is used and your product and the secret to what you cooked or prepared will be replicated everywhere in the world, right? And it goes on. And it's the same. So that's why McDonald's tastes the same regardless of where you are. So quickly, also there's the option of, if you're in trouble, which I hope none of you will ever be with your business, and it's very, very good. It's a very good productive business that you could merge with, say you're making yam and your restaurant or whatever, yam and stew and different types of things, and somebody else is doing the same thing, or maybe you overlap and you're like, oh geez, I'm tired, or I'm in trouble, I don't want to do this business anymore, my kids don't want to take over. Somebody can buy your business. They can merge, or you can merge even if you don't want to close down your business. You can get bigger. That's how most of these companies get bigger and bigger, right? There's also the benefit of formalizing, which is different from intellectual property registering. Sometimes people have businesses that are like, geez, government is going to tax me, so therefore I don't want to register my business. And that's true. Sometimes people get to, really taxed a lot. But these days, the World Bank and IMF and other organizations look into making sure that there's ease of doing business. And of course, AFCFTA is looking into that, facilitating, business in different countries in Africa, so that they don't tax, because it's good to make sure that there's ease of doing business, right? So the advantage of formalizing, registering, like we mentioned that they're an LLC, sole proprietorship, whatever it is that the fringe benefits that government offers, and you won't get access to it. So most of you are formal, I think, from what when you introduced yourselves. So that may not apply as much to you, but the advantage is you get a lot of fringe benefits. There could be grants, there could be, consumer safety standards that you follow, and, environmental standards. Is not yet as litigious as the US and Western nations are, but we'll get there soon, especially with respect to products. If somebody sells counterfeit, or if your food is not complying with safety standards. And I think my partner may talk a little bit about that under AGOA, especially if you're exporting, because they want certain standards that you follow, even within Africa to a certain extent. If you sell food and somebody gets stomach ache, they could sue you. So if you're within the rubric of government, then it helps, because they have the standards. They could give you some fringe benefits, which they should, for you to be able to operate your business in a very healthy and safe way, especially if you're on the roadside or whatever. They also free economic zones where they give, they don't allow you to pay any taxes for your business. Also, if you're operating within the AFCFTA angle, that's what the advantage is, that now 54 of the 55 African nations are part of this AFCFTA, right? They've signed. About 40 plus have ratified. So most of the countries that you all mentioned, Ghana, Egypt, Nigeria, and all the countries represented here today, your countries have ratified, so they're members. So you're under the umbrella of the AFCFTA, so that when you want to export to a neighboring country right now, there are benefits. You have more money in your pocket, right? Some countries, Ghana has started operating under AFCFTA, Egypt, Nigeria is in the process, almost there. So regardless, there's so many benefits. How to increase economic viability? Let's continue. This is the next slide. In terms of places where you can go to get, funding, I'll zip through this because I want to talk about the MANSA platform. And a Stanford Seed Fund, there's this is under the business school, USAID, and I think my partner may be addressing that because they're hubs. They have hubs in East Africa, Southern Africa, West Africa. The one in East is in Kenya. South is in South Africa. The one in Southern Africa is in South Africa. The one in West Africa used to be in Ghana, but now it's in Nigeria. They're hubs where you can go and have access to more information. They have grants. They also have information on how you can export and maybe comply with the standards for exporting goods to the US under AGOA. But my partner will be discussing that when he takes on the training session. Foundations too, they're local foundations within Africa, regional, right? In terms of next measures, you can keep up with us through OSE. There's more to come in terms of what we're going to be doing. So this is not the end of this, because we're also planning some, futuristic, but we'll discuss that later through OSE, okay? George Soros, Bill Gates, Rockefeller, there's so many foundations, US African Development Foundation too, and of course locally too, Dangote, all the philanthropists basically, Patrice Motsepe in South Africa, they all have foundations, right? The key is to be able to draft and fill out the form on time and meet. One caveat is sometimes they give grants and it's attached to loans, and they have collateral eligibility requirements for you to qualify for the grants, for the loans and the grants attached to the loans. Sometimes it's over 250,000 assets you have to have, which we're working on to make sure that a lot of these places don't have that high level, because the definition of SME in the Western nations is different from how it's defined in Africa. But it's not always the case that it's that difficult to qualify for the grant combination, the blended kind of finance combination eligibility that are out there. There's also Tony Elumelu Foundation at the national level. There's so many. Ghana, Nigeria, North, South, East, West Africa, the whole gambit. Quickly, the tools. What are some of the tools for operationalizing meaningful trading under AFCFTA? For those who want to do the transborder, right? But really, you don't have to be involved in transborder to participate in, say, the MANSA, right? The MANSA platform. If the Pan-African Payment System, okay, which is this one here, very, very interesting. More money in your pocket, really, if you participate in this, if you're involved in transborder. Because in the past, if you wanted to maybe send money to, say, South Africa, the Rand, you're in Nigeria, or you're in Ghana, Cedi, and you want to send money to Egypt or South Africa or wherever, you have to convert. The transaction cost was much higher. Now you could easily do it. That's what the Pan-African Payment System does. It facilitates the process. It also makes you not convert. You don't have to go to the bank to say, I want to convert my CD into Rand. That's what it's fully operational. It's operational now, but it's all access to information, which, as I said, when you formalize that, will give you more information on where to go, in terms of next measures. But really, it's a really good, system that has been put in place to facilitate trading under the umbrella of AFCFTA. Besides also the benefit of very minimal tax on your product. But the product that you're producing has to be African value added, meaning, say, if you're producing strawberries or spices, right, or shea butter. Somebody mentioned that they're involved in shea butter. Somebody mentioned spices. Everything that you're producing within that rubric, if you want to say you have spices, you want to maybe, and the spices came from the soil in Africa, and then you went and added spices from China in it to export, you are not going to get that benefit. What they're promoting within the rubric of the AFCFTA and duty-free products based on rules of origin, which different countries have done, is to make sure that everything that you're doing is African produced, African manufactured, African produced. So they encourage that, because basically for a long time, most African nations were not trading with each other. They trade more with the Western nations than they do with each other. Only 15 to 18% of transborder trade is within Africa, whereas African trade with Western nations is much higher, as high as 20, 30, or even with China in terms of products coming in. So that was basically what the AFCFTA, one of the goals of the AFCFTA, was to encourage trading intra-African manufactured products. So that's a good thing for those of you at the grassroots level who are basically doing this already, right? Yeah, so requirements, I mentioned the MANSA as one of the, the benefits of the AFCFTA process, and how the MANSA is used to facilitate trade. MANSA, named after King Mansa Musa of Mali. It's a very unique platform, sort of similar to what I mentioned earlier about the payment system, also linked to Afrexim. Afrexim is the Africa Export-Import Bank, right? They have put in this platform to facilitate trade for SMEs, for corporations. These are all African, and also financial institutions. Now, SMEs they have not given SMEs as high a bar. The bar for SMEs is much lower, because they want to encourage more SMEs to join the platform. And when SMEs join the platform, they really, in terms of requirements, they just need to complete a management report, bank statement, shareholder list. If you don't have a shareholder, that's fine. It's a very basic, simple form. We're hoping we'll get them in our next training. Hopefully, they're actually interested in doing another training to, based, depending on, how things go. We hope that, we can do a third training at some point soon. SMEs are not required, meaning all of you, not required to file annual reports like the corporations are, credit information and ratings, sign an anti-money laundering questionnaire and all that. There's so many things SMEs are. The benefit of it is they help you with due diligence. It's a networking tool, and it's not just nationally where you're going to have access to other like-minded companies that are working and trading or forming their businesses and progressing and being productive, but you're also going to have access to how to scale up on a regional level. So it's like a network that works in and of itself, self-monitoring. And so far, as of November 2022, it has 9,221 contributor entities. I spoke with them last week. They actually have more than 10,000 right now. And SMEs comprise 5,000 contributor profiles, but now SMEs have actually gone up to close to 10,000 contributors, right? And let's see. I think I mentioned benefits, so I'm skipping that. And I think I'll stop here and maybe have question and answer later. So I'll turn to my, it's 12:54. I want to turn to, because I want to give him enough time. So I'll turn to my partner, Mr. Samolis. Is he, Frank?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I'm going to put up, I have your slide.
Okay.
So we can wait till later for the Q&A, yeah? Okay.
Sure, yes, please.
So let me, let's see. Slide, stop. And we can discuss next measures when Mr. Samolis is done. And wait, sorry, let me go back. Okay, here we go. Okay, it's there, right? It's up, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, can you,
So
Val, can you get the slide on AGOA?
Okay. Okay, let's see. You tell me. Okay.
There we go, right there. That's good. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Val. It's a pleasure to be here to speak with all of you. Val gave, as usual, an excellent overview of the aspects of AFCTA that we did not cover in session one. If you recall, session one, we talked about the objectives of AFCTA, why you should care about it, how businesses can participate. And Val just went into a lot of the details about some of the financing aspects and the other elements that make AFCTA a worthwhile initiative. Remember that AFCTA is a common market of African countries. It was negotiated among and between the participating African countries, and the result is a common market, a free trade area where goods can move duty-free and non-tariff barrier-free through various African countries. That is designed, obviously, to promote trade within Africa. What I'm going to talk about now is a separate program that relates to African exports to the United States, and that is what we call AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act. As you see on the slide here, it's available to qualifying sub-Saharan African countries based on several factors: improvements in the rule of law, human rights, labor standards. Those eligible countries can export products from their country to the United States free of any duties. So in a way, you can look at AGOA as a supplement or complement to AFCTA in terms of expanding your trade, your export trade, now to the United States. In terms of eligible countries, I think all of the countries that you operate from are AGOA eligible. There are just a couple now that are not eligible, including Ethiopia, which has been suspended from the program, but all the other countries that where you operate are eligible. So the objective is to grow exports from Africa into the United States. I mentioned that it is a trade preference program, which means AGOA was not negotiated between the United States and the African countries. It was a unilateral act by the United States, made effective by legislation, that when enacted, provided duty-free treatment for African products to the United States. That's the good news. Now, the downside of a preferential trade agreement is that the country that has provided this program can also put in whatever limitations it wants to. So it puts in restrictions on, requiring countries to comply with the rule of law, to recognize human rights, et cetera, et cetera. Those are conditions that the United States imposed because this was not a negotiated agreement. It was a one-way trade agreement. It doesn't have anything to do with US exports to Africa. AGOA has proven to be quite successful in its implementation. It is still widely dominated by petroleum and petroleum products. And the Biden administration, particularly in their African summit, has said it wants to expand the benefits of AGOA. Keep in mind, the AGOA program expires in 2025, and therefore it needs to be extended by an act of Congress. And I don't think there's any significant opposition to renewing AGOA, which means you can continue to take benefit of this duty-free program. But you also need to be aware that there may be changes made to country eligibility requirements. There may be changes made in the rules of origin. As Val discussed, any trade agreement has rules as to what constitutes a product of that country. From what I heard from all of you, it sounds like the products you're making are, it's not a problem to conclude that they are indeed the product of a particular African country. It's usually when you get into more complicated manufacturing processes, or in the case of textile and apparel, cloth, which is primarily from another country and not much is done to it to convert it into what the Customs Service calls a new and different product. When you're making apparel, you're generally turning a raw material product into a new and different product, which means it then becomes eligible under AGOA. So this is a program designed to facilitate one-way trade from Africa to the United States. I've given you an overview of what the requirements are, but as Val said, there are tools available on the internet. If you look under the US Trade Representative's website or the Department of Commerce, they will explain in more detail the requirements under AGOA. And in addition, there is the US aid offices, also the US Embassy. Each embassy in Africa will have a foreign commercial service officer. And that person should be well equipped to answer any questions you might have about the mechanics of getting something approved for AGOA. You need to make sure that the customs documentation is in accord with the AGOA requirements. It's not terribly complicated, so it's easy for a US government official to assist you in getting that duty-free treatment. But that's the sum and substance of AGOA. So think of it as it is indeed a separate program, but as opposed to AFCTA, which focuses on intra-Africa trade, this is a tool to promote your exports to the United States and remove any of the tariff barriers that continue to exist for any non-African countries. So it's a huge advantage to all African exporters to take advantage of this AGOA program. With that, I will conclude to allow enough time for questions and answers. I know Val is still on the Zoom call. So Winnie, if it makes sense, we can now open it up. We've got about 20 minutes left to answer any questions you might have and discuss particular aspects of either AFCTA or AGOA. Thank you very much.
Yes, please. Can you go ahead?
Thank you, Frank. That very excellent training on AGOA. Wonderful. Yes.
So if you have any questions, you can unmute and ask.
I'm just looking at the chat.
Yes, please.
Okay.
But I would like to ask that I personally want to find out more about the MANSA and how can business owners get on top of that as well.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Winnie. the Mansa, oh, should I get out? Okay. Okay, good. Okay. The Mansa platform is a very unique one. There's the due diligence, there's the networking, there's the know your customer platform, those three. And of course, they're adding more to it. And hopefully the next, remember, they want to participate. So hopefully, I believe next month, we could have another session with them. But it's a very unique platform and it's expanding real fast. The benefit of joining it is that you have the SMEs will have access to all the information they need to be able to expand, both for networking purposes and also when they're members of the Mansa platform, banks will be more amenable to providing loans or grants or whatever to them, because banks will assume that they are credible SMEs. Because before joining, you're required to fill out bank statement, shareholder list, so you have everything in there all intact. And then there's a networking tool where your fellow SMEs, it's categorized according to sectors and areas of interest. If you're in the food supply chain, for instance, or if you're in the tech chain, or if you're in the music chain, or in the clothing chain, you know, whatever you're in, or in the book sale chain, you know, I'm looking at the different areas, textbook distribution chain, vegetable farmer, whatever, or hotel, you know, selling supply, you know, because the supply chain for food is cradle to grave from beginning to the retail side. So they're all part of, you know, the food supply chain, you know, so the benefits are the networking. Also in terms of cost, which I'm discussing with them, ranges from $120, 24-hour access, to $10,000. It's very high, but I'm discussing with them how to ameliorate cost for SMEs. So hopefully we'll have a session where they'll come in. This is Africa Export-Import Bank. They also provide grants and loans, but yeah. So it's a very, you know, I gave I think on the chart, the non-exhaustive list of some of the things that they provide. And of course, as I mentioned, the 3 pillars, due diligence, know your customer, information, they help you with that, right? And then and it's for SMEs, financial institutions and corporations. And they are, excuse me, they also have Invest in Africa. Okay, it provides information for investors seeking investments. So investors can actually have access to your information when you're an SME. Okay, and then they have news and events on due diligence and investment opportunities. So you have access to networking all across Africa, right? So they have reliable information about SME traders in the intra-Africa. So even if you're local, it helps you know others, not just competitors, but other potential collaborators that you can work with. Okay. Also helps you with regulatory climate required for imports and exports. So you can go in there and tap into a lot of information. If you're Master certified when you get in, then it facilitates access to markets, both nationally for you and internationally. But like I said, I'm talking with them about potentially the cost of joining, because the SMEs, a lot of SMEs have joined so far, right? They have more than 5. When I spoke with them last time, it was much more than what they had initially, which was 5,000 contributors, right? So they have close to 10,000 now for SMEs alone. They have corporations, over 3,000 corporations. They also have finance, but like I said, for SMEs, it's not as much. Does that help at all? Do you have more questions on that?
No, please.
Hi, Winnie.
Thank you so much. All right,
Yes, thank
I
you.
believe Ya has a question. Ya, can you ask your question, please?
Good evening, everyone. Please, my question is for Mensa. Do they support new SMEs in terms of businesses that are new? And also, my second question is, which kind of products can be exported using AGOA?
Okay, I think my Frank can answer the second. Can I let me quickly handle? Is that Ya or Anna? Is I saw Anna. Is it Anna? Oh yeah.
No,
it's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Sorry. Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Good. So yeah, definitely. I believe the SMEs. Yes, they support new SMEs. That one. In fact, it's beneficial to new SMEs because I think if you're new, you want to be able to network and have access to, other fellow collaborators or prospective collaborators and also competitors, and also know your customer. So it provides that avenue for networking. Yes, but hopefully, we will have a session with the Afrocosmo representatives, the next training we have, and we will incorporate a lot more, and also want to follow up with you all for where you are, but that's yeah. So yeah, that will be in the pipeline. We'll discuss that later and let you all know. Yeah, Frank.
Yes, as far as the products that are eligible, it's virtually any product that is truly a product of an eligible African country. So you can't use it as a transshipment point for Chinese products that you want to call African products. But as long as the product is grown, manufactured, or assembled in Africa, it will be eligible under AGOA. You can double check. There might be one or two exclusions from that, but the easiest way to do that is either through the website at USTR or Commerce, or contacting the Foreign Commercial Service at the U.S. Embassy in your country. They can confirm, but I'm 95% sure that whatever product you're thinking about is going to be AGOA eligible, as long as the country involved is AGOA eligible.
Yes, and also the sanitary standards. But you see, as Frank mentioned, most of the products that you're carrying will not. I think. Well, I guess we were talking within the framework of AFCFTA, but for AGOA purposes too, I want to add that there are. I think I mentioned it earlier when I was presenting about standards, the quality standards. But the advantage from what we deduced when you were talking about what you all produce is that it sounds like most of you are not doing perishable food products. I heard spices, shea butter. So if you were sort of exporting, I know somebody who tried to export yam, and by the time it got to the warehouse here, it was rotten. If you're exporting strawberries, those perishable food products are more difficult to export into the US than, say, if you're doing spices that are not really perishable, and they can probably most likely pass muster. In other words, the standard, right? We do that. Frank and I, we work, we help people who want to export. But even if you're doing locally, we can connect you with local lawyers who can help in Ghana, Nigeria, Egypt. I think most of you were from these countries today, at least, wherever you are, Zimbabwe, Southern, East, West, North Africa. That's what we're here for. Not just to kumbaya and have conversation with you, but to make sure that you're productive, that this session does not just end with you going home and that's it. We have the test that we're given. And I think if you have questions on that, let us know too. On the test, we're sending it to Miss Winnie, and she, I think will be coordinated effectively. We showed you, but if you have questions on that, let us know too. Don't be shy. The questions we asked you, the 2 questions. There's going to be a cash prize. I think we put up the guidelines. Did we put up the guidelines?
I can just share it right now. So
yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. So if anyone has another question, kindly.
I see Owusu's hand is up.
Owusu?
Owusu. Oh, Moses. Moses, what is the question? You're
He
posting
said-
some.
Yes, he's posting something. So he says, my company has open furniture manufacturing section, products like beds, tables, cabinets, dining tables, wooden artworks, and carvings. He wants to find out if they are also eligible to trade under AFCFTA, AGOA, and MANSA. If not, what advice can you give him? Thank you.
Okay, I can do AFCFTA, or we can both do a. Frank, do you want to go first, or I can go first?
Yeah, I can just talk quickly about AGOA and then you can start us on AFCTA. Yes, the products would be eligible for duty-free treatment under AGOA, again, so long as they're manufactured and are product of an eligible African country, which it sounds like they are. In your case, you may have an added advantage because a number of furniture items have been the subject of anti-dumping and countervailing duty complaints from other countries. I believe it's China and Vietnam and possibly others. So in addition to paying regular duties, they now have to pay supplemental anti-dumping duties or countervailing duties, which makes them commercially much less attractive and gives you a better cost advantage. So I would encourage you to look into that further because you may have a great market opening for furniture products that aren't subject to any punitive duties and also aren't subject to regular duties. So that gives you a big leg up.
Wonderful. Yes, thanks. And on the AFCFTA angle, the furniture, the real key there will be, was it locally made? Let me say that every product, the AFCFTA doesn't say you can't, what happens within the AFCFTA for those who are already trading cross-border, they can still trade and sell their products to other countries. You know, one African country, you can still sort of export to other African countries. The key is, will you get that duty-free benefit under AFCFTA? The only way you can within the furniture, bed, tables is the input into the bed you're making, the wood you're using for the dining tables, was it gotten locally? Who asked the question? Moses, right? No, wait. Who asked the question?
Yes, Moses.
Yeah, it was Moses.
Yeah, Moses. The question is: was the furniture? Did you manufacture it locally? Meaning, the input that you used, if it's all locally sourced, so to speak, locally sourced from the wood in Africa. You didn't sort of get the wood, even for the person. I think somebody mentioned there in the textile. Whatever industry you're in, if part of your textile is from Indonesia or China that you used, the adire or the brocade or whatever, you got it, then that's where the rules of origin thing comes in, where that input loses. You lose the duty free because it's not totally 100% African input. You know what I mean? The input into that factor of production has to be all local for you to get that full benefit of the duty free that you're offered. Okay, they're all locally sorted. Okay, I see that. Fantastic. So yeah, so you're more likely to, of course, get, depending on which country are you, if you're planning to export out of the country, you're in Ghana. Are you in Ghana? Moses, you're in Ghana, yes, and you're exporting. Okay, so so that's good. So that's where you qualify to be able to do that. Wonderful. Okay, fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, but we have another question from Bushira. Bushira, kindly go ahead with your question.
All right, thank you so much, Winnie. Good evening, everyone, once again. So thank you so much for the information, Dr. Val and Frank. They were really insightful and helpful. So I'm just going to ask a quick one briefly, because along the line, I missed out on a lot of information due to network disconnection. Is there a possibility of this recording be shared with us so we can go through it after the event in case we've missed out on or two information along the line? And also, is there a way, probably as an organization, how can we get to keep in touch or have contact with Dr. Val and Frank for an organization like to discuss partnership?
Okay.
Forward.
So,
Thank you.
Bushira, I will share the recording. If you, I've shared my number, WhatsApp number in the chat. If you're not on the group, we have a group that we had for registrants. So if you're not on the group and you haven't received anything from me, kindly message me on WhatsApp there. And Val, the second question goes to you and Frank. They would like your contact to reach out to you in case of anything.
Yes, thank you. Bushira, you're doing what's your trade again? Bushira, Bushira.
Yes, I am. I'm here. I work with
Yes.
an organization, African Food Change Makers,
Food
founded
change.
founded by Ndidi Wumwele.
Ah, Ndidi, she's my
Yes.
good friend. I communicated with her just yesterday.
Okay.
Yes, very well. Yes, and we communicate a lot. Yes, we actually saw each other last month. Yes, but definitely. There's. I think I don't want to talk on behalf of Frank, but I think that we're definitely open to further collaborations. And of course, we'll let you know. We'll join and convene again. We'll discuss with Jose and we'll decide our next, maybe next month, because this is sort of an ongoing thing that we're doing. We have next measures where we'll keep up with you all, but this is an ongoing thing. It's not a one-stop kind of initiative, because this is very, very critical. There's a short-term goal, there's a long-term goal for SMEs, and this is something that is very, very useful because information gap can actually affect productivity levels, right? So definitely there's room for collaboration, both short and long term. So we have, I think we put it up on the screen. Did we put it up? Okay, maybe I can share. Let's see, where is it?
Philip also has a question. Okay, Philip.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. A question, please.
Philip, kindly ask your question.
Yeah, my question is, I'm into a manufacturing company. We actually manufacture leatherware products. So I wanted to know the benefit that I can partake of, because we do production. So what we need right now is wholesalers or retailers that will come and patronize our business, most especially into the international market. So I don't know how to go about that one. So I want to know the channels that I can also join myself onto, so that I can get partners or bulk purchases from the outside of Ghana. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So that's like the leather. You make leather products, you said?
Yes, sir. Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Yes. And you're thinking, is it exports within Ghana or outside? I'm sorry, within the region of Africa or outside Africa?
Yeah. If I get both of the two, I'll be glad. Because if I get outside Ghana, that within Africa and outside Africa, I'll be glad.
Okay. Now, one of the key things too, I think Frank wants to chime in too, is scaling up. How many leather, you do leather goods in terms of clothing, or what kind of leather?
I do leather apparels. We are into.
Hello?
Leather apparel, he said.
Leather apparels, okay. And yeah. How many do you produce per factor of production in terms of scaling up? How many employees do you have? I'm just throwing them out in terms of your viability. Because one thing I've found too is you want to make sure you meet demand. I'm sorry?
Yes, we have 13 employees. And what we do is we do based on order. So you place your.
Hello?
Order the kind of product that you want them to produce for.
You're cutting off. Hello, Philip.
Madam. Yes, madam.
You're cutting off. So you do based on order. Okay.
Yes,
now,
madam.
how many
Yes,
can
madam.
you produce per factor of production in terms of transaction cost? Can you produce, say, per time, you know, per, you know what I mean? You have 13 employees. So how many per factor of production can you make within a shop? Like if 1,000 is ordered, how many can each of them produce per time?
Okay, each and everyone can produce like 500 pieces
Per day?
per day.
Okay.
Per day is
So you're
100.
able to, your turnover in terms of assembling them, it's pretty fast. So I would say that, you know, within the rubric of AFC, they were wondering if you can have wholesalers and retailers. The Mansa platform, very useful for the networks to put you in tune with. But we also, in terms of access to markets, this is the advantage of that Mansa platform that, you know, in terms of if you're looking for wholesalers and retailers within Ghana or cross-border. Now, if you're planning, well, Frank maybe can address, because we do that. We help people in terms of the transactional aspects of coming into US markets. Also, within Africa, it used to be in Ghana for West Africa. If you're in West Africa, if you're in South Africa, it's in South Africa. If you're in Southern Africa, USAID hub for AGOA, you walk in there, you tell them what you want in terms of access. We work on the transactional side. We're attorneys and we're also policy regulatory people. We're also, you know, trainers, right? But one way, you know, you can go in to the hub, or you can, you know, we can follow up, you know, if you want to sort of access US markets, if it's within the region of Africa, you definitely qualify, right, to export, you know, your products. You know, one of the challenges that some of my clients and some people have faced is ability to meet demand, because they don't have large economies of scale to meet demand. So if they find a buyer or somebody who's interested, or wholesaler who says, hey, why don't you supply 1,000? They say, okay, and we want it within a week, or maybe 10,000 leather jackets or whatever it is, they can't meet demand because they don't have enough employees to meet demand on time, right? So if you don't have that problem, then your problem is the networks and getting those people, or you're not so much a problem, but your glitch, so to speak. That's something that's fixable through the networks that, say, Mansa platform creates, and also say the hub, and also people like us. Frank and I do these things in terms of you know, access to markets issue. We can, you know, help you. But Frank, please.
Yeah, I would say that we can provide additional advice. I left in the chat box my email address, and Val may want to do the same thing, so that you can feel free to contact either one of us after this session with any technical questions or any other issues you might have. This is what we do all the time in terms of advising clients on the technicalities of trade. But it sounds like you have the opportunity to increase your export sales within Africa, as you mentioned, and also to the US under AGOA. Again, I think there are other manufacturers from China and elsewhere who are subject to additional punitive duties. So you have an additional competitive advantage.
Okay, so we have Dr. Val and Frank's email address. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to them on there. And Val,
and we're going to also have another training, which will be a little bit on the Mansa platform, and sort of a little bit more, you know, information on the aspect of networking and access to markets. But yeah.
Thank you guys for another amazing session. Okay. Also, I just want to talk to you briefly about OZE. We're partnering with the Afrocosmo Development Impact team, and pretty much what OZE is, we're a fintech company that has an app, and the app is for bookkeeping. Very soon we'll be adding some new features on the app, such as inventory and storefront. So as a business owner, if you also have to go for a brand and they ask you for your data and you don't have anywhere, maybe you're still writing in a book, I mean, it's the 21st century, so we need to start getting digital. So Jose is here for you. If you have any questions, I'll put my number on there, and then I will definitely help you and see what's right for your business as well. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I don't know if you have any more questions on the chat. Yes, Ahmed has shared a link for everybody who's interested as well in more information.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Have a lovely evening. I will send the questions.
Right.
No worries. Thank you, Val.
Yes.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you,
Have a good
everybody.
night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.